Hi, what's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another F1 2020 My Team Career Mode episode, this time for the Spanish Grand Prix. We're going into this race on a 3-race win streak, so hopefully we can continue that. And we're just going to start with our activity timeline, do some G-Force training for Daniel Ricciardo, and then we're going to purchase a sponsor relations upgrade on the marketing side of things in our team. And I'm still trying to keep our money reasonably high balance because we're going to need to sign Ricciardo halfway through the season, but it still has some allowance for purchases. I'm just going to upgrade all of my perks as a driver because they're relatively cheap and I can get them all to level 2 with my acclaim level. So that should leave us with probably about 6 million by the end of it. And we should be able to make that up in the next 2-3 races. So we're just going to fast forward the activity timeline, and then we're going to get into the laptop of the Spanish Grand Prix.
We've had the new parts come through from the fabrication process. We'll have them with us for the next Grand Prix. I see you've been skipping a lot of practice sessions lately. Keep in mind that practice is useful to get used to the track, improve your car setups, and also helps us gather data for car development. Make sure you don't jeopardize your results by taking these sessions too lightly.
So, completely dry for the weather forecast in Spain. Well, we haven't had many wet races this year, but the most recent episode, as Zandvoort, was a partially wet race, although it didn't provide anything like particularly crazy or interesting during it. It was a very standard wet race. In the development update, we are pulling away from Mercedes ever since we overtook them, going into like the Vietnam Grand Prix on performance. We've just pulled away, and Racing Point are now closing up to them, so they probably need to get some updates in just so that they can try and keep pace with us and keep the championship fight going. Now, straight after practice, we have enough resource points to purchase an upgrade, and we're going to purchase a major upgrade on the energy recovery system, and then we're just going to get straight into qualifying. On to our first lap in Q1 then, and Q1 is still a formality. We only need 1 lap, and just going through the final corner, it is a 1:14.3, which, as we fast forward towards the end of the session, is indeed enough to get us through. Not in first though, and we're 9th and Ricciardo's 11th, but I think we both set our laps very early on and others were getting the track warmed up and then able to set better laps. So both Mercedes topped the session in the end, equal times as well, so quite close. And then, as per usual, it's both Williams, both Alfa Romeos and both Haas cars getting knocked out in Q1. Magnussen leads that mini train of cars, with the 2 Haas cars between him and his teammate. And then Nick De Vries out-qualifies Jack Aitken, but they were both about 3 tenths even off Alfa Romeo and Nicholas Latifi, so it seems like they're sort of falling off the back of that train and not really being able to keep up with either Alfa Romeo or Haas either. Now on to our lap in Q2, we're just going to go out on soft tyres. I know if we go on mediums we'd get a slightly better strategy, but I think our car has the pace to do the 2-stop anyway, so we're just going to get through on our lap, and it's a 1:14.1 this time, a couple tenths quicker than we set in Q1, and as we fast forward towards the end of the session, again it's enough to set us through, this time in P6, so it does look like we're going to need to find a bit of time for Q3 if we do want to be right at the front, and it does seem to be closer than the last couple of episodes where it just looked like we were generally up there in second or first, but now we have a bit of time to find. Lewis Hamilton tops the session, so Mercedes, despite not looking as strong on the development index, seemed to be quite strong in the first couple of sessions, but Q3 is the session that matters. Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris, Lance Stroll, Danny Kvyat, Antonio Giovinazzi and Esteban Ocon are the ones that are knocked out. So interestingly, both racing points are knocked out despite the fact they're looking incredibly strong on the performance index. Maybe this circuit just doesn't suit their car. On to our first lap in Q3 then, and hopefully we can find a bit more pace as we head on down the run to turn 1. And we head towards back towards the final corner. Bottas sets a 1:13.9 and we set a 1:13.3, so straight away 8 tenths quicker than our lap in Q2. And as we head on to start our second lap, Ricciardo has beaten that lap that we set, so we're currently in P2 and we do need to try and improve on this lap. But as we head towards the final corner, we're not improving and we are about 100th down, and despite we setting a purple sector 3, we still couldn't improve and we finished second in qualifying, so no pole position for us this time.
It's time to remind ourselves of our top 3: Ricciardo, Thomas and Lewis Hamilton. With qualifying wrapped up, we now have our grid lineup for the big race tomorrow. Be sure to join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
So despite Mercedes topping both of the previous qualifying sessions, we take a front row lockout with Ricciardo on pole position, 600ths ahead of us in second. Lewis Hamilton is very close behind us in third, with Valtteri Bottas like 3 tenths off his teammates, so he'll be disappointed with that. Verstappen takes home P5. He has a bit of a gap to the group of cars behind, which Perez starts P6, Vettel will be P7, Carlos Sainz P8.
I'm sure you're pretty happy with that. Are you feeling confident that you can take your qualifying pace into the race?
Yes, the qualifying pace in Q3 looked strong. The first 2 sessions weren't brilliant, but I'm confident we're going to be on the podium fighting for the win. It was pretty close. I don't think I ever got the perfect lap in. My second lap I made a couple of mistakes when I was quicker in most parts of the lap.
The race minutes away from starting. Here's what today's grid rundown looks like. Daniel Ricciardo starts from pole position today, and Thomas completes the front row. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Bottas, Max Verstappen and Perez, Vettel, Sainz, Albon and Charles Leclerc, Gasly, Norris, Lance Stroll and Kvyat, Giovinazzi, Ocon, Kevin Magnussen and George Russell, Grosjean, Latifi, De Vries and Jack Aitken.
So, looking at the race strategy, as I said, it would be a 2-stop. We're going to be fitting on lap 7 and then do 2 13-lap stints on the medium tyres. 33-lap race, and hopefully we'll be able to get the better of Daniel Ricciardo, who obviously will start ahead of us. We're going to start with 1.2 laps over fuel, but as the 5 lights come up and then this lights out and away we go, we don't get a good start, and Hamilton gets a brilliant start and he's going to challenge Ricciardo into turn 1, who covers the inside line very heavily and closes the door on Hamilton, and we have to settle for P3, and Bottas is now going to look for a move on us, but we can cover him off, and despite going slightly deep, he doesn't have the run on us, and we didn't get the start we wanted though, and now we have a car between us and Ricciardo that we didn't want, as we should be quicker than Mercedes. Now Ricciardo sets the fastest lap at the end of lap 1 as expected, and Hamilton is slowly dropping back from him, and the gap between them is already a second. As we head on to lap 2, Ricciardo's just pulling away from Hamilton, and I am going to need to overtake Hamilton shortly, because otherwise we're just going to be held up too much in this race and not have a chance of Ricciardo. So on lap 3 that's exactly what we're going to try and do, and we're going to try and have a go at Lewis Hamilton, because don't want to be held up for any longer in this race. We're going to go up into Rich Mix and overtake, and we're going to go up the inside into turn 1, and we're going to overtake him for P2. And now we just need to try and close the gap on Ricardo as much as possible. On to lap 4 then, and the gap to Ricardo has actually stayed exactly the same, so we'd have hoped to close it down, but we haven't. And we're coming up towards the end of the first stint. But now we're going to go on board with Charles Leclerc here, who is looking to have a move on Alex Albon for the lower end of the points. And he does seem to be much quicker in a straight line here, because Alex Albon was quite far ahead, but Charles Leclerc is still going to go for it into turn 1. And he's going to go around the outside of turn 2. But we'll have the inside line for turn 3, and we'll be able to just squeeze Alex Albon and take the position. So, a good move from Charles Leclerc. And later on in that lap, we have Esteban Ocon, who is looking to have a move on Danny Kvyat as they move forward. And Esteban Ocon goes round the outside of Danny Kvyat in an unconventional place through the hairpin, and then through the next section. That section was actually removed in real life, the first bit of it, at least the hairpin. But it was a good move from Esteban Ocon. We are finally starting to close the gap to Daniel Ricciardo, and eventually he pits after we close the gap by about 7 tenths. So he's going to go for the undercut, and we're going to try and push this lap and see if we can do the overcut. So it's an important lap for us, as all the other drivers have been coming in, and we did set a green first sector, but we did set a red middle sector, and depending on or not whether Ricardo's been held up in traffic or something, then we may be able to get the jump on him. Bottas and Leclerc will follow us in behind, as will Alex Albon. And we need a good pit stop, and the team do deliver one with a 1.9 second pit stop, and that could make the difference, as Ricciardo is coming down the main straight with Kevin Magnussen, but we are clear of him, and we, probably thanks to Kevin Magnussen holding him up on this lap, have taken the net lead of the Grand Prix. Obviously, I say net lead, the 4 drivers ahead of us are probably on the 1 stop, so we will need to overtake them at some point. But now on board with Daniel Ricciardo, who needs to overtake Kevin Magnussen if he's going to try and catch back up to us, and he does go around the outside of the hairpin at the end of the middle sector, and he is up just behind us in P6. As we head on to the end of lap 8, we set 2 purple sectors on our out lap, but obviously having pitted we couldn't set the fastest lap. And as we head on to lap 9, we're now catching up to Antonio Giovinazzi, and as we go through the final chicane, we're going to pass him into the final corner. We've just got so much of a better exit, and we couldn't set a fastest lap probably because he was holding us up in the final sector. But now we see Lando Norris going to try and overtake Pierre Gasly around the outside, and we're going to try and follow him through, and we do manage to get the move on Pierre Gasly. So opportunistic from us, but we do run quite wide in the dirty air of Lando Norris. So we're now going to have to wait to try and get past him. And now we're going to see Antonio Giovinazzi trying to overtake Pierre Gasly, and he does manage to get him around the outside into the hairpin. And now Daniel Ricciardo is trying to have a look in at both of them as well, because he wants to be able to try and get one of the positions. And as we head through the final sector of chicane, it does seem like Gasly has a slight issue and is just losing positions. So obviously he lost one to Lando Norris, and he lost one to Giovinazzi. Now he's going to lose one to my teammate Ricciardo. Obviously he also lost one to us, but as they head into turn 1, despite Gasly having DRS, he's got no match for Ricciardo's straight line speed, and Gasly has capped off the lap in losing 4 positions. Lando Norris is up next on our list of people to overtake, and we do manage to do so relatively easy into turn 1. So now we're up to P2, just behind Lance Stroll, who is leading this race. And as we head on to lap 11, we do manage to set a new fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and we do manage to go pull to the inside on Lance Stroll, and we overtake him into turn 1. So we do now have the net lead of this Grand Prix, as everyone around us is stopping once more. So it's now just about trying to pull us away as much as possible while Ricciardo is still stuck in traffic. But on board with Charles Leclerc, and his engine just fails in the middle of this very long train, and he does hold up Alex Albon directly behind him, but he has to pull to the side, and his engine just gave up. So bad luck for him. As you can see, we have the information that he is in confirmed retirement, but due to set another fastest lap of the Grand Prix, and Ricciardo is still stuck behind Giovinazzi, so this is good news for us if we can just pull out larger and larger gaps while Ricciardo is stuck behind. We've already got the gap up to 8 seconds, and we may be able to increase it more before our stint ends on lap 20. So the gap's 9.2 seconds at the end of lap 14, and if we keep gaining a second on the lap, then there's no chance of Ricciardo ever being able to close the gap in. So after Stroll and Norris pit at the end of lap 14 for their one and only stops in the Grand Prix, we managed to get the gap up to Ricciardo to 10.8 seconds. Hamilton and Bottas, despite showing promise in qualifying, have not really been close to me and Ricciardo in this Grand Prix. So just like in the Dutch Grand Prix, they had good qualifying pace Mercedes did, but their race pace was awful. So that's something they're going to need to work on, and after Giovinazzi pitted, Ricciardo's now been able to maintain the gap at around 11 seconds. So he will try and close it in the final stint, but we're going to try and just maintain the gap we have and keep the lead for the rest of the race. So we're going to be pitting at the end of lap 20, so this will be our in-lap that we're starting right now. And Ricciardo just seems to be lacking something in the final sector, because he keeps pulling it down slightly, and then in the final sector we just managed to pull it back away again. So the gap as we enter the pits is 12.2 seconds. Interestingly, Ricciardo did not go for the undercut this time, because he pitted a lap earlier than us, so he's doing like a 15 lap stint on mediums and then a 12 lap stint, which seems a bit odd to me, because I'm doing two 13 lap stints. I don't see why he wouldn't try and spread them more evenly, but we'll see what his strategy can achieve. So he will come out about 7 seconds ahead of us, but he still has to make a pit stop, and we come out comfortably clear ahead of Lance Stroll and Lando Norris and Antonio Giovinazzi, and the gap to them is already about 12 seconds as well, so there's no danger of them challenging us in this race. Ricciardo does pit at the end of lap 21 as we do set a purple final sector, and he will come out very close to Lance Stroll, and indeed he'll come out behind Lance Stroll, so he's going to lose further ground to us. He did jump both Norris and Giovinazzi as we do set another fastest lap of the race, and we're just trying to push away. So the gap to Ricciardo is around 16 seconds, so he'd have to gain almost 2 seconds a lap at this point, as we set another fastest lap of a 1:16 flat. And the end of lap 24, Ricciardo is still trying to overtake Lance Stroll, as we just keep setting fastest laps into the 1:15s now. We're just going quicker and quicker each lap. And now on board with Daniel Ricciardo, he's finally going to get the chance to overtake Lance Stroll, and his race has kind of been ruined by traffic, as he struggled to overtake Magnussen, therefore lost the position to us, and then got held up by some of the one-stoppers to lose further ground to us in this race. So he'll probably still be able to claim P2 now, because there's no one else around him challenging him, but he would have hoped to win this race having started from pole position, and we've had a good recovery considering by the end of lap 1 we were down to 3rd position. So with 7 laps to go, the gap is just over 17 seconds, We've stopped setting fastest laps, so it seems the tyres are starting to go down. I am now going to start to try and recharge all the battery and everything, so that maybe on like lap 31 or 32 I can go for one final fastest lap, because I know Ricciardo has the pace, so I know he could try and beat my fastest lap and will probably achieve it. So we've been in lean mix and not using any ERS for the last few laps, and Ricciardo starting to close in the gap, but Stroll is still currently in P3, and as we move on to the next lap, we have Lewis Hamilton trying to overtake Antonio Giovinazzi. So the Mercedes on the two-stop, they're on the hards even though they're on the two-stop, which is a bit confusing for me, but Hamilton does manage to get the position on Giovinazzi, and he'll move himself up to P5, and now he's going to try and chase down Lando Norris and Lance Stroll for the final podium position, while his teammate Bottas will be trying to overtake Giovinazzi himself. But Lance Stroll did look pretty comfortable in P3 for a while, but now he's being chased by Lando Norris, and Lando Norris could try and steal the podium position ahead of him. Racing Point, despite having a really quick car this year, still don't have a podium yet, and Red Bull, Ferrari, ourselves and Mercedes all have podiums. So one of Racing Point and McLaren are likely to become the 5th team to have a podium this season, as we do set the fastest lap that I said we were going to try and do. We do lap a couple of cars along the way as well, all 3 in that final section. So a 1:15.8 exactly is what our fastest lap is, and I think Ricciardo will try and beat it. We do set a purple sector 1 just then, but the lap won't lead to anything, I don't think, because I don't have the energy to keep it up. Now we're on board with the battle between Max Verstappen, Esteban Ocon and Kevin Magnussen, and this is a battle for P9, and Alfa Romeo obviously haven't scored points yet this season, but Esteban Ocon manages to overtake Kevin Magnussen, so now Magnussen will try and have to hold on to the final points position, but Max Verstappen's just too quick, and with 2 laps to go in this race, it's a heartbreak for Kevin Magnussen, who thought he may be able to get Alfa Romeo's first points of the season, but Max Verstappen will take them away, and he will claim the position in P10. And now we, as I said, did set the purple first sector at the start of that lap, but we were 2.5 tenths slower by the end of it, and as we head into the final lap, we now have Lando Norris, who's battling Lance Stroll, and this is for the podium, where they both would desperately want it. And Lando Norris will pull to the inside to take it away from Lance Stroll. Obviously in this career mode, Lando Norris doesn't have a podium yet, because obviously this started before 2020, and Lance Stroll I think only has 2 podiums in his career at this stage. But now we're going to be on board with Valtteri Bottas, who is trying to overtake Antonio Giovinazzi, and he successfully does so, and Giovinazzi has been relegated to P7. So as we come round the final set of bends, Ricciardo has indeed stolen our fastest lap away from us, but it doesn't matter too much, because we're still going to come round to win the Spanish Grand Prix and our 4th race in a row.
Nice work, that's P1. Race win. Well done.
Lando Norris does indeed win driver of the day for fighting back to get a podium, and we will see the podium celebration with me, Ricciardo and Norris on it. So, despite the fact that we've won most of the races this season, and the only one we didn't win was one Mercedes one, we have had 5 different teams on the podium already, and I'm expecting to see Racing Point up on the podium at some point this season as well. So it hasn't been a season where there's been no competitiveness.
Who would you rank as your driver of the day?
It's got to be Lando Norris, hasn't it? Smooth, confident and assured. I've got no doubt that he and his team are going to be over the moon with his performance today. Well, Lance Stroll would be my pick. He managed to keep a cool head today whilst pushing through the field. I know that's at odds with the official decision, but I think they deserve some recognition on a day where both of these drivers are at the top of their game.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. The current leaders continue to extend their lead at the top. Meanwhile, Ferrari have improved their position. A strong weekend from them as they fight their way towards the top. Well, Ant, an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
So, Anthony Davison deciding he wants to drive for the days, both Lando Norris and Lance Stroll, but both of them did put in great drives to finish 3rd and 4th, respectively, from starting 12th and 13th. We obviously won the race ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, who did start from pole, but did also take fastest lap, so you would suggest that he would have been the quickest car this weekend. He took fastest lap by 5/10 as well, so pretty good from him, and even Bottas beat our fastest lap, so we must have not had some brilliant pace, but we just had consistency this weekend. Lewis Hamilton finished P5 ahead of his teammate Valtteri Bottas on P6, and Antonio Giovinazzi was P7. Pierre Gasly finished P8, and Esteban Ocon was P9, and Max Verstappen rounded off the points in P10. Kevin Magnussen just missed out on the points, as we saw, in P11, so Alfa Romeo are going to have to wait for their first points this season. Kvyat was 12th in the AlphaTauri. Sergio Perez was 13th with Vettel 14th, both of them disappointed with their two-stop strategy not working out. And the commentators were mentioning that Ferrari had moved up the standings, so that can't be right because they were 14th and DNF'd. Russell took home 15th on the one stop, and you can see how bad the two stop is. Both Sainz and Albon was 16th and 17th as well, with then Grosjean coming in 18th, and Latifi, De Vries and Aitken all got lapped with Charles Leclerc DNFing. We extend our championship lead to 38 points over Daniel Ricciardo, who is a further 20 points ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Lance Stroll is still holding down P4 in the championship, 10 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who is 5th. Max Verstappen moves down to 6th, 8 points behind Hamilton, and Lando Norris moves up to 7th, equal on points with Charles Leclerc. Both of them have had podiums this season, and Antonio Giovinazzi is both 1 point behind them. Pierre Gasly is then on 14 points in 10th, along with Sergio Perez, and then comes Perez's teammate Ocon and Alex Albon. Danny Kvyat, Vettel and Sainz will probably be hoping to get more points on the board because they're quite far behind their teammates and not matching the highs that, or the podiums at least, that Lando Norris and Leclerc both have achieved so far this season, with only 4 and 2 points to Vettel and Sainz. And then the Alfa Romeo's, Haas cars and Williams cars still yet to score. Magnussen the highest of all of them with his 11th place finish. So we almost have double the points in Mercedes. We have a 113 point lead over them, with Racing Points in 3rd, another 41 points back. Red Bull are in 4th, and McLaren move up, overtaking Renault, and are now 2 points behind Ferrari. AlphaTauri are then on 18 points, and then it's the 3 teams that I already mentioned, Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams, that are yet to score so far this season.
Work out there today. Let's have your thoughts. You and your teammate took the top 2 positions today. Have you got the best car out there?
Yes, we do. We've had the best car for the last few races now, and that's why we can win 4 races in a row. Yes, it is great. It's great to get another one too, and we're 1st and 2nd in the championship, so it's good news for all of us. So, as we get to the rivalry breakdown, we are extending our lead over Valtteri Bottas, who didn't have a brilliant race out today. And our team acclaim is generally increasing. We're level 13 and Ricardo's level 14, and as a team we're level 16. So I wonder when we'll overtake Ricardo, because if it continues like this, we should be able to get higher acclaim than Ricardo at some point. We don't get any damage deductions this weekend, so good clean driving from the pair of us, and we brought our total up to 9.16 million. So 3 million gained roughly this weekend, and that shows that we are making some steady income for the coming episodes. But that will be the end of the episode, and so I'll see you guys next time for the Monaco Grand Prix.